One of the places with a truly terrifying story in Morrowind is right here. Check it out. It's an ancestral tomb sitting on the harsh ground of the Ashland region. If you head inside and explore the whole place, you'll see a skeleton. Well, at least part of it. Its legs are stuck under a huge rock. But that's not all. Right next to it, there is a ruby and a note. And that immediately raises a bunch of questions. Who did this skeleton belong to? What was someone doing here? And what exactly happened to this person? And you know what? There are plenty of places in Morrowind like this. You can find skeletons scattered around different dungeons, but only for some of them can we actually discover their terrifying little stories. So today I want to share places with the darkest stories that really stand out and blow my mind. Each of these locations is a great example of the game's world building and storytelling. They all leave behind clues, letting us piece together what happened to these poor adventurers. These stories can even feel like warnings, like the game is telling us maybe think twice before going deeper next time. And there's one place in particular that really surprised me with just how much detail you can uncover about the unlucky travelers there. The story of this place actually stretches across more than one location and involves necromancy and even betrayal. But yeah, we'll get to that one a bit later. So let's start from the place I showed you at the beginning, as it's very interesting. It even hides an Easter egg. At first the tomb looks pretty normal until you find the skeleton, of course. And the view is honestly terrifying. It looks like someone's legs got stuck under a huge rock, right? So my question is, did the rock kill him instantly or did something else happen? And we actually get a straight answer right in front of us, inside the note lying on the ground. It looks like a torn page from a book, but it's actually the final words of this poor adventurer. It turns out the rock did collapse on his legs, but it didn't take his life. At least not immediately. He ended up lying here for many days. Though it's still a mystery what caused the collapse, whether it was a trap or just a very unlucky accident. He didn't hear any device activate, and the note is honestly pretty terrifying to read. He talks about the unbearable pain on the first day, slowly losing track of time and the awareness that these are his final moments. Can you even imagine being in a situation like that? It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. But even at the end, it looks like our adventurer kept a bit of humor. He writes, "I will die here in this tomb. No better place for a dead man." And honestly, I can't argue with that. From the note, we also learned that this wasn't just any traveler. He was a real adventurer and a very good one. He had been to places nobody even knew existed. He recovered artifacts and treasures that were thought to be myths. And that's what I really love about Morrowind. When you're exploring dungeons like this, every skeleton feels like a story waiting to be discovered. And sometimes you can't help but think that could be me. Just another adventurer searching for treasure hidden in places like this. And speaking of this skeleton, here's something even more interesting. Like I mentioned before, it's actually an Easter egg. It belonged to a man named Indy. Ring any bells? Yeah, Indiana Jones. A famous fictional archaeologist and adventurer. And honestly, finding him here in a tomb searching for treasure, which he actually seems to have found, is just perfect. Of course, what happened to him here is tragic, but the reference is incredibly cool. Especially since the note basically confirms it even more. He mentions his students that he loved teaching, his father who was also an adventurer, and even jokes about his childhood pet, all things that line up perfectly with the movies. I especially like this little detail about his pet. I'll even show you the clip from the movie I think it references. Check it out.
Jeez, what does it always mean? This Junior.
That's his name. Henry Jones Jr.
Like Indiana.
We named the dog Indiana.
The dog? You are named after the dog?
So what do you think about this place? I love storytelling like this. And the place I'm most excited to show you has an even more interesting and complex story. But before that, let me show you two more great locations. The first one is right here. Yes, it's yet another tomb with a skeleton lying in one of the chambers. From the note next to it, we learn that the man whose body is lying here was sent here with his companion Morty to retrieve a magical staff. Unfortunately, Morty didn't make it this far. I looked around the tomb, but I couldn't find any other bodies. It looks like he died on the way to the tomb. Of course, that immediately made me wonder if we can actually find him, but I'll come back to that later. What's unfortunate is that Morty was holding the key to the tomb. I checked the door just next to our poor traveler, and yes, it's locked. From the note, we can find out that the traveler tried to force it open. He even mentions that his lockpicking and disarming skills leave much to be desired. And what's really cool is that we can actually see him holding a probe, meaning he probably died with it still in his hand. My guess is that the trap on the door finished him off. But the trap isn't even the worst danger here. The traveler warns us to beware the keeper of the staff. And sure enough, after opening the door, we find a hostile orc sorcerer wielding the staff mentioned in the note. And the staff itself is actually a very cool artifact worth 70,000 gold. I really like how every story I come across is different. Sure, they all end in a similar way. In the end, all that's left of these travelers is a skeleton. But what led them to their deaths and who they were differs a lot. Here, for example, these people actually knew what they were looking for. This wasn't just a random tomb they stumbled into hoping for treasure. They came here with a clear goal, probably sent by someone, and one of them was probably finished off by a trapdoor. Indiana Jones, on the other hand, could have simply been searching for treasure in every tomb he stumbled across, or exploring places he had only heard about through old texts and myths. I don't think he was doing a job for someone else, and his legs were crushed by a rock, which eventually led to his death. And the two other locations I'll show you in a bit have completely different stories. Okay, but let's stick with this tomb for now. The question that instantly came to my mind after reading the note was, what about Morty? Can we find him somewhere? And the answer is yes. We can find him in another tomb east of this one. His body lies in one of the chambers and is labeled Recently Slain Knight. You can only figure out who he is by the key in his inventory, the same one mentioned in the note. I checked it myself and it really does open the locked door protecting the staff's owner. But here's something really strange. He died before the man who left the note, yet he's still a decaying body while his friend is already a skeleton. How is that even possible? Any ideas? I don't know much about the undead diet, but both tombs have them, so that's probably not it. If you've got any theories, feel free to share them in the comments. I also wonder what they were doing here in the first place. Were they after more treasures, or did they simply go into the wrong tomb? But I guess some things will always remain a mystery. And honestly, this is another great example of world building in Morrowind. I love how we can find NPCs and places that are actually connected like this. It feels very immersive. Like people are really traveling through Morrowind, chasing treasure just like us, just not always being as successful. Okay, so before we dive into the most terrifying, atmospheric and complex story, let me show you one more place right here. It's a small tomb where inside the second chamber you find a skeleton. Just next to him lies a scroll written in blood. And you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense, using blood as ink in a situation like this. It made me wonder how other adventurers wrote their notes. Did they always carry ink on every expedition? Who knows? So yes, the use of blood already makes this place feel pretty unsettling. From the note, we find out the traveler was actually a thief. He was searching for bounty here so he could feed himself. And it looks like he regrets living a life like that, though he's also proud that he was at least a really skilled thief. Apparently we can hear tales about him, tales of Malaki the Light-Footed. Malaki writes about how lonely he was. He never stayed in one place long enough to really know anyone except for one person, Mariah. From what he says about her, she was probably the love of his life. Unfortunately, he never got the chance to see her again. He spent his last moments here with a broken back, unable to move. It's not said directly how that happened, but he mentions that undead beasts are becoming louder and he fears they will come to finish him off for good this time. So maybe he fought a few of them before, defeated them, but ended up badly injured in the process. I hope his soul rests in peace. I also wonder if we can hear any rumors or stories about him from NPCs. If you know of any, let me know in the comments. Okay, so are you ready to see the place I'm most excited about? It's located right here at the edge of Vardenfell. As you might guess, it's yet another tomb. You step inside and immediately hear a very disturbing scream. That already makes you feel a bit uncertain about what you're going to find here. It's not something you usually encounter when walking into every tomb. In fact, I think I've only heard it in this one, though there's so many tombs that there might be more that welcome you that way. And what definitely doesn't usually happen is a door with a luck level of 100 as the very first thing you see. When I see a door like that in Morrowind, I always get excited, because in most cases it leads to something amazing, loot, secrets or both. As you open it, you hear yet more terrifying sounds. Besides the usual creepy tomb ambience, you also hear buzzing flies. They are probably flying above the body you see right away. Was he the one who was screaming? He has nothing in his inventory that gives us a clue who he is, so let's move further. Just when you pass the corner, you'll see another body. And again, we don't really get any clues about what happened here. The answer is hidden behind two more locked doors with 100 luck difficulty in the final chamber where we find the last unlucky traveler, Tyronius. In his inventory, we find a note he wrote that explains the whole situation. Four men came here to this tomb, cleared it of undead, and locked all the doors behind them. But out of nowhere, more undead started appearing as if someone had summoned them. And I can confirm you can actually find Daedra Guardians here. They fought for a long time, but one of their companions, Joinus, was defeated. And let me pause here for a moment. You know what this text reminds me of? Let me read a small part and maybe you'll guess where am I going with this. Brother, our longtime friend Jonas died in front of me in the most horrible way. But do know he died with the honor of a fighting man. This battle will not be won. Any ideas? Let me show you.
They have taken the bridge and the second hall. We have barred the gates, but cannot hold them for long. We cannot get out. We cannot get out.
Doesn't this situation feel familiar? Reading that note instantly reminded me of this scene in Moria from The Lord of the Rings. Okay, but let's talk about what actually happened here, because it gets really interesting. So one of the companions told Tyronius to go deeper into the tomb, and it looks like he listened to the suggestion, because we can find his body in the main burial chamber. So in total, we can find 3 dead men, Tyronius in the deepest part of the tomb, and his 2 friends upstairs, the one who was defeated first, and the one who suggested they go deeper. But what's interesting is that Tyronius mentions one more companion, Leuven. He says he heard his scream, so he assumed Leuven died here, but I couldn't find his body. We'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, but what were they all doing here? In the note, he mentions that they decided to help Goris with some task and they were promised payment for it. Unfortunately, he doesn't say what they were supposed to do. I'm also not sure if the task was meant to be done in this tomb or if they had already completed it. From what I understand, Tyronius already had the payment, so they probably completed the task, right? It's rare for people to pay in advance. He writes about how they loot and hide out in occasional tombs, so maybe that's what they were doing here. Tyronius also mentions that Goris betrayed them. Does he mean that what happened to them here is connected to Goris, or does he mean something else? That's what we're going to find out in just a moment. Tyronius also points out where Goris lives, in a tomb in Tel Mora, surrounded by undead companions. What's interesting is that Tyronius forged the key to Goris' hideout, and yes, we can actually find that key in his inventory. So it looks like we should probably pay a visit to Goris, right? But you know what also doesn't leave me alone? Where is the body of Leuven? I searched the whole place and found 2 out of 3 companions of Tyronius, but there was still no trace of Leuven. Tyronius mentioned he heard his scream, so is that the one we heard? But that doesn't really make sense. Tyronius is dead right now, so he wouldn't be able to write about something we've just heard, right? I think what actually happened is that Tyronius heard the scream of the second companion we already found upstairs, and we've actually heard Tyronius screaming ourselves. I guess he wrote this note a while ago, and now as we walked inside the tomb, the Daedra finally got to him. He was in the most secured area, so he should have survived the longest. So I took the key and went to the tomb he mentioned. I used it and entered the deeper chamber, and there I found Goris living among the undead. A real freak. But you know who was right next to him? Leuven. So it looks like he betrayed them too. Or at least surrendered to Goris when given the chance. I defeated them, checked the whole place, including their bodies. You can't really find anything interesting in their inventories, but on the table there is a book called Darkest Darkness. This book is basically a guide to Daedra within Morrowind. It's written like an academic style text explaining how Daedra work, how they are summoned, and how the Tribunal Temple views them. So it looks like Goris was a necromancer. He could have been the one summoning all those Daedra we found earlier, or maybe he taught Leuven how to do to it or gave him enchanted items or scrolls. The only thing we still don't know is why Goris wanted to get rid of them. I searched the whole tomb but couldn't find more information. Maybe he was just insane, or maybe they knew too much about him and he felt threatened. For some reason, Tyronius made a key to his hideout, so it looks like he didn't trust him at all. The whole story is told in such an epic way. Reading the note while hearing those creepy sounds really sets the atmosphere. I could imagine those guys fighting bravely here, and I was so eager to check the other tomb with Goris, only to be shocked by finding Leuven there. What do you think about this story? Are there similar ones you've come across in Morrowind? I remember one more place with a terrifying story. It's in Mudden Grotto in an underwater Dwemer ruin. It's a story I stumbled upon while exploring all the waters in Morrowind. So if you are interested in hearing it, you can check out my underwater exploration challenge. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, thanks for watching.